You promised to stick with your mate when you married. Knowing what you're getting into before marrying is crucial since marriage is hard. Some take their vows seriously, while others disregard them. Unfortunately, Rhiannon Kelly learned this. Kelly and Richard were married for 14 years and had 4 beautiful children. 17-year-old Lehenra, 12-year-old Caleb, 10-year-old Isabella, and 6-year-old Logan. Kelly's mothering was superb. She was very involved with her kids. She enjoyed exercising and cooking healthy meals. Their family was ideal. However, they would soon learn otherwise. Kelly was paralyzed from the waist down by a spinal stroke at 37. Spinal cord blood supply disruptions cause these strokes. The spinal cord cannot function without blood, causing tissue damage. This blocks spinal cord nerve impulses. 1.25% of strokes are spinal. Kelly was one of the unlucky few who were told they would never walk again after this stroke. I was at home one day with Logan, Kelly recalls. I fell down a flight of stairs, and Logan had to call for help. She continues, I had a car accident 18 months prior, and they said that could have caused spine problems. However, I was a fit and healthy woman, so there was no other reason for this. After her stroke, her husband left her and their children. Kelly's family and hospital staff were her only support without him. How would you handle her situation? This tragedy changed her life and took the person she needed most. She was in trouble. Kelly says, I needed my husband the most when he left their family. I was miserable in my marriage, but we had a life and responsibilities. If you like my videos, don't forget to like or subscribe. Thanks in advance. One was caring for their children. How could she do this without her husband and paralyzed? Panicked, depressed, and scared. On her 5th hospital day, they told her it could take 6 months to a year to recover. I felt like giving up, but I knew I had to be strong for my children, she says sadly. I hated myself and my wheelchair the first time I went out. I would have killed myself if given the chance. Continued. But the other patients on the ward were amazing, they supported me and encouraged me to get out of bed every day, she smiled. Kelly miraculously took her first step on the parallel bar after many hours of physio. 2 weeks earlier, doctors told her she would likely never walk again. I was dragging my body, and I had no feeling in my legs, but I didn't care, she said with pride and emotion. All that mattered was walking. Several months later, she searched Facebook for a personal trainer. She was doing well, but she wanted more help. Keith Mason took over. No personal trainers wanted to work with me, she says of Keith. She worked with Keith, but she didn't know what would happen. Mason was a personal trainer and a 14-year rugby player. He played for Super League teams in 14 years. After acting, he started personal training. She accomplished a lot with him and said, but at the same time, I found an affordable physio, and so I left the personal trainer as it was too much for me. It wasn't over. Keith frequently checked in with her after her sessions to see how she was doing. After our sessions, Keith and I stayed in touch. He would ask me how I was doing and our relationship blossomed, Kelly said. She had butterflies because Keith was nothing like her ex-husband. Then Keith asked me out for coffee, and we picked up where we left off, Kelly said. I couldn't believe a gorgeous rugby player would date a disabled woman like me. They were more than trainer and client, they were in love. Kelly credits her family, friends, and Keith for her progress. Kelly said Keith encourages her daily and understands her pain. He is amazing with me and the kids, and I love him more every day. God gave me my soulmate. My best friend is the only person I love like my children. He taught me love. Strong relationship. Harmony. Compromises. That's loyal, true, and, most importantly, a perfect relationship. Kelly is making great strides physically. I now only need my wheelchair for long distances, but my home hasn't been adapted, so I try not to use it, she said. I'm back in the gym, and Keith's help is making me stronger. She's wheelchair marathon twice and raised money for spinal cord stroke research. In fact, they've started their own charity. Go Pink promotes fitness and nutrition for people with physical disabilities. Paradance and Wakefield Trinity Physical Disabilities Rugby League are among the charities they represent. She has a lot on her plate, but she still struggles with her legs, including nerve issues, and will always be disabled. Strangely, she wouldn't change anything. After my stroke, I thought my life was over, but it's just beginning and has opened so many wonderful doors, she said. I joined Models of Diversity and got my first TV commercial. I used to struggle accepting help, but now I welcome it as it helps me keep moving forward, Kelly wrote on Instagram. We need help sometimes. Being the bigger and stronger person is to admit when we need help and accept it from the right people. Chris Norton, 18, changed in an instant like Kelly. Decorah, Iowa, raised Chris. Since childhood, he wanted to be a professional football player. Since deciding to do it, he dedicated every second to becoming the best. Life had other plans for the ambitious young man. Chris was excited on a sunny Saturday morning. He was ready to win the big game against Central College. Chris knew he was a great athlete and knew the game plan well. No preparation could have predicted the tragedy that day. Everyone watched the game eagerly. Chris worked hard until he made a fatal mistake. The crowd gasped as Chris hit the grass. The crowd's anxious whispers filled the field. He ignored them because he couldn't move. But his story wasn't over. Chris failed to push himself off the ground. I can't get up. He remembered praying to God to let him get up and walk off the field. He was airlifted off the field despite his efforts. His football career consumed him. He prayed the whole way that he could recover. The doctor's expression told Chris it was over. The doctor told Chris he fractured his C3, C for vertebrae. To make matters worse, the doctor told Chris he had a 3% chance of moving below his neck. Chris's years-long future was destroyed in hours. He was closer to his dream this morning, but he may never move his fingers again. Chris was taught to fight for his beliefs. He did it to prove the doctor wrong. Norton told a journalist, I wouldn't accept that. I was going to be that 3%. His perseverance helped others in similar situations. After his diagnosis, Chris founded the Chris Norton Foundation to help spinal cord and neuromuscular patients. His foundation raised over $800,000. He had a lot of help. Norton was helped by family, friends, trainers, and many other unique people who were moved by his story. These advantages changed my life, he said. With the support of his loved ones, Chris was determined to recover. One person profoundly changed his life. Norton only needed motivation to walk the stage at his college graduation. He moved to Michigan to work with physical therapist Mike Barwis. Mike taught Chris many valuable lessons, including not giving up on life because of his injury. He joined a dating app, but it wasn't working. Before finding Emily, Chris felt his circumstances made finding love harder. He knew Summer was his soulmate as soon as they started talking. For someone to look past my injury and my physical challenges, and instantly I knew, Emily, she didn't see that, she saw me for who I was, and I instantly had a connection with her, he said. Chris found love but knew his fight wasn't over. After months of hard work, Chris received his college diploma. When his name was called, the auditorium fell silent as Chris stood up and took what was his. Everyone applauded. He received his diploma and disproved the doctors who doubted him on the most important day of his life. His family admired him. His life was finally coming together, but he had one last task. Summer was perfect. Chris knew he wanted to marry her for life. He took her hand after graduating and asked her to marry him. She happily consented, delighting the young couple. Chris didn't want Summer to be the only bridesmaid, so he had another difficult task. He learned his body, but some days he wanted to quit. He fought his body daily, sometimes winning, sometimes losing. Summer was his rock. She inspired him to walk. He knew he couldn't have done this without her, his biggest inspiration. Chris married 8 years after his life-changing accident. He couldn't believe he was marrying his dream woman. Summer wanted to walk down the aisle together, even though the bride usually does. She was like that. Chris was wrong, his life improved. After their wedding, the young couple discussed having children. Chris wanted a family. His younger self would laugh if he told him his future. Chris and Rihanna worked hard to get the life they wanted, proving that anything is possible with determination. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in the next video.